Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television, GPTV. I'm Brett. Though there's not new comics coming to comic shops, doesn't mean there's not new comics to you. Yes, there's tons of comics you can go check out that you've probably never read, and they're new. They're new. By definition, they're new. In my hands is probably one of them. It's Monstro Mechanica, published by AfterShock Comics. It's written by Paul Allor, who's one of the co-creators, and Chris Evenhuis is the other co-creator and the artist. Sjan Weijers is the colorist. Allor is also the letterer. Alright, so how do I describe this? So the story is, it's the Renaissance, and that you've got Leonardo da Vinci, who is kind of like the hot guy that everyone wants to have work for him because of his crazy contraptions and weapons and creations. He's got this assistant named Isabel. He creates this automaton, this robot that, of course, everyone wants to use. And it's a really interesting story in that it focuses on Isabel and Da Vinci as they are kind of being used by various factions and how they kind of weave through that, as well as this robot. Like, really interesting concepts, and definitely not quite the story I would expect it to be or expected it to be. I remember reading the first issue, and I kind of expected maybe like a Frankenstein riff for the rest of it, but it's really not. It's more about Da Vinci and Isabel weaving through and trying to survive being used by all these factions who want their abilities and want their creations to gain power themselves. So it's really interesting in that way. It's much more in the political like machinations than action adventure. Interesting like that. Like, Machiavelli is one of the characters, so not really shocking on that. I really didn't think through what Machiavelli was saying versus what Machiavelli has written, and I'm sure there's some interesting stuff when it comes to that. But it's an interesting story. It's, again, not what I expected at all. I thought I would go in and get kind of a Renaissance version of Frankenstein with some known historical not characters, but historical people. But really, it's much more different. Like, it reminded me of something, and I can't really think of what it is that I'm reminded of, but it's a fascinating read. So this collects the 5 issues. The art is cool. There's a lot of detail, and I don't know how well like the character costumes and all that are for the time period. But the characters I think are really interesting. The design is really interesting. It's very clear, clean art. Overall, like, it's a good series. Like, it doesn't quite blow me away, but I think there's a lot of potential, and I'd like to see where things would go from here. As far as extras, we got character designs in the back, a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff. And so overall, like, it's an interesting comic. It doesn't necessarily blow me away, but if you like that idea of Da Vinci and Machiavelli and the Renaissance and a robot and all these kind of crazy contraptions during that time period, you'll dig it. But again, just remember, this isn't necessarily like an action comic. It is much more. There's much more intrigue involved, and kind of the focus is a very different thing than you might initially think it is. So overall, like, interesting, very interesting concept, and I'd like to see more to see kind of like what the next phase is. So it's in comic shops now. We got a link beneath this video. Put in your zip code. Tell the shops near you. No shop, no problem. We do have affiliate links, but definitely go support your comic shop. They need the support. Obviously, they need to support. Tons of stuff going on in the world that shops are struggling. Many are doing mail order, maybe do curbside pickup. Go hit them up and see how you can help. And speaking of support, I want to thank AfterShock for hooking us up with the reviewed copy. We appreciate it, and thank you for watching. Now, if you're into comics, if you're into AfterShock, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.